The star appeared overnight. Astronomers across the solar frontier swore it hadn't been there the day before, an impossible blue supergiant burning with the energy of a newborn sun, hanging at the edge of human-charted space like a beacon. But the star wasn't emitting light. It was transmitting. At first, the signal was dismissed as noise. Then the pattern sharpened, mathematical sequences wrapped inside a frequency no natural star could produce. Hidden in those sequences was a set of coordinates. Not to a point in space, but to a point in time. Hours later, every deep space observatory received the same final line of the transmission, decoded only after the burst ended. "We are what remains of your future." And then the star began to collapse, far too fast, far too violently, triggering gravitational ripples powerful enough to distort the fabric of space itself. Across the colonies, governments panicked. Scientists went silent. The military mobilized. Because if the message was real, the collapse of the impossible star wasn't an accident. It was a warning. And at its heart, buried in the swirling debris, sensors detected a structure the size of a small moon, forged from an element no one had ever seen. Only one ship was close enough to reach it before the anomaly swallowed everything. Captain Aaron Vega didn't want to go near it. But the message contained one other line, encrypted using a code only she should have known. "Aaron, you sent us." Helion Observatory drifted in a lonely orbit around Ceres, its alloyed panels whispering as thermal regulators adjusted against the cold bite of space. Inside, Dr. Lira Kesson sat in her command chair, eyes fixed on the pale glow of her monitors. Another quiet night among the asteroids, another shift cataloging photon scatter from distant stars, data destined for archives nobody bothered to open. She sighed, brushing a loose strand of silver-black hair behind her ear. Routine. Repetitive. Predictable. Then the photons stuttered. A half-blink on the feed, barely noticeable, yet unmistakably wrong. Lira straightened. Stars didn't blink, not like that. Not in a region this stable. She tapped the control surface, isolating the interference. It flickered again. A rhythm. Precise. Intentional. Her pulse kicked. No natural star does that, ever. Something out there was speaking, deliberately. "Kieran," she whispered, throat suddenly dry. "Run anomaly analysis." The observatory's AI responded in its calm, measured tone. "Analyzing. Please stand by." Data cascaded across her display, reorganizing into tight patterns. Tiny threads of information stitched themselves into a lattice, too structured, too organized to be random. "Conclusion," Kieran said. "Pattern coherence exceeds 99.9%. Origin, non-natural. Source, Epsilon Ophiuchi." Lira froze. "But that star died 8 billion years ago." "Correct." The lights dimmed automatically as the quantum extractor engaged, pulling encoded information from light that had spent eons crossing the void. Lira leaned in, breath held, watching as the photons settled into coherent frames. And then the room erupted in color. Holograms flowed around her, huge, luminous, impossibly vivid. A city rose from the air itself, crystalline towers bending light like liquid glass, archways spanning glowing rivers, walkways suspended above a shimmering ocean. Alien citizens walked with grace, their outlines not quite humanoid, but elegant and purposeful. Everything gleamed with a brilliance untouched by decay. Lyra's mouth fell open. She wasn't seeing a simulation. She was witnessing history, the last recorded light of a star system long dead, preserved in the photons now reaching her tiny observatory. The universe's memory, etched across time itself. The past of an entire civilization was suddenly reaching into her present. She stepped through the projection, careful not to disturb the sensor field. A childlike figure, translucent and composed of refracted light, ran past her, chasing a floating sphere. She could almost hear laughter if she let herself imagine it. Towering spires, each shaped like spiraling shells, reached skyward, catching beams from a sun millions of kilometers away. "How is this possible?" Lira whispered. "Unknown," Kieran replied. "But the encoded structure indicates intentional compression. This data was embedded deliberately in the star's photon output. Someone had put these memories inside a star." Heat prickled Lyra's skin. And then the projections began to shift. The vibrant city dimmed. Towers splintered. The oceans boiled away, replaced by cracks of molten rock. The sky blackened, forming a swirling cyclone of shadows. Lira felt her stomach drop as the final frame sharpened into view. A figure stood alone on a jagged platform of stone, tall, slender, yet unmistakably alive. Its outline rippled, as if its very atoms were being tugged by forces she couldn't see. Behind it, the dying sun collapsed inward, swallowing its own light. The figure turned directly toward Lira. Her breath hitched. The hologram wasn't just facing the projection field, it was aligned with the observatory's real coordinates. As if it knew exactly where the photons would eventually arrive. At its feet, symbols flickered, coordinates forming out of glowing dust. Her observatory's orbit. Kieran's scanners beeped. Translation complete. Embedded sequence matches your precise location, Dr. Kesson. Lira backed away from the projection. "That's impossible." "No," the AI replied. "It simply implies intent. Whatever left this message had aimed it at her specifically." Heart racing, Lira pulled up the raw data stream. Beneath the visual content, threaded through in layers, were additional strings of encoded information, mathematical constructs, probability maps, gravitational signatures. Someone, or something, had built a message of staggering sophistication and fired it across billions of years. Her fingers shook as she magnified the final spectral burst. "Kieran, run a spectral comparison on this gravity signature." Comparing. The hologram dissolved into alignment charts. Lira watched as two curves, ancient and modern, aligned with terrifying precision. "Match found," Kieran announced. This gravitational distortion pattern was recorded earlier today near the Kuiper boundary. Lira stared. "You're telling me the same force that destroyed that star is now inside our solar system?" "Yes, Dr. Kesson." Cold swept through her chest. In the projection, the lone figure's outline flickered again, its body warping, twisting, pulled by the same force now creeping closer to human space. The last photons of its world showed it lifting one arm, reaching toward her, as if begging, not shouting, for help no one could give. Lyra's voice trembled. "Kieran, is there any message left in those photons?" The AI paused. One final line. "Decoding now." Light reshaped around her, forming symbols that floated gently above the deck. Then the translation appeared, simple and terrible. "We are what remains of your future." The room fell silent. And somewhere in the void beyond Ceres, a gravitational ripple rolled closer. The universe wasn't just remembering its past. It was warning her about their future. The next wave hit harder than the first. Lira steadied herself as Helion Observatory shuddered, its sensor arrays vibrating with the violent surge of incoming photons. Kieran dimmed the lights automatically as the extractor struggled to keep up, converting the ancient signal into coherent, decipherable data. What emerged on her holographic wall made her breath falter. Blueprints, massive, intricate, impossibly advanced. Lines of spacetime equations spiraled around three-dimensional models. Energy vectors twisted into shapes no human physicist would dare propose. A ring. A colossal one. Encircling an entire planet. "Kieran," she murmured, barely trusting her own voice. Is this a planetary shield? Incorrect, the AI replied. Energy distribution does not match shielding. Curvature metrics suggest manipulation of spacetime fabric. Purpose, displacement. Lira felt the floor tilt beneath her. They moved the entire planet, she whispered. They didn't protect themselves from the supernova, they escaped it. A whole civilization had slipped out of the universe, and left instructions behind. The holograms shifted, showing pulsating pylons rising across the alien world. Each structure channeled impossible amounts of energy into the ring, which glowed brighter and brighter until the entire planet was wrapped in a lattice of shimmering arcs. The ground split open, not from destruction, but from controlled engineering. Sigils, massive geometric glyphs, burned into the crust, aligning with orbital structures above. Every citizen, every machine, every particle vibrated with synchronized purpose. This wasn't panic. This was a plan executed over millennia. Frames accelerated. Light streaked. Time compressed. Lira rubbed her temples, overwhelmed by the sheer scale. Humanity had dreamed of bending spacetime, of wormholes and folded dimensions, but this civilization had done it 8 billion years ago. And they had done it under the shadow of a dying star. Kiran, she said, voice shaking, calculate the energy required to shift an entire planet out of four-dimensional spacetime. Calculation unnecessary, Kiran replied. Result exceeds human understanding. Their process uses dimensional harmonics unavailable to current physics. Lira exhaled a long, trembling breath. Dimensional harmonics. Planetary phasing. Higher dimensional evacuation. She wasn't watching a death. She was witnessing a transcendence. If they escaped into another dimension, could they still be alive? More frames streamed in. This time, symbols dominated the projection, mathematical structures that resembled language, oscillating between geometry and waveform. Kiran attempted translation, but each attempt collapsed under paradoxes embedded in the syntax. These signals contain interference, the AI said. Not random. Intentional. This is layered communication designed for nonlinear cognition. Meaning? Meaning they are speaking in multiple temporal directions simultaneously. Lira swallowed hard. Past. Present. Future. All encoded into light. Then came the countdown. At first, she assumed it marked the star's collapse. But the data proved otherwise. The ring's energy buildup, the planetary glyph activation, the orbital lenses, all crescendoed toward a moment distinct from the supernova. This wasn't a countdown to destruction. It was a countdown to departure. The moment their planet phased out of the universe. Frames blurred into a blinding cascade, and then the images returned to a singular view, the silhouette. Closer. Clearer. Its form bent at impossible angles, as if its body existed partly outside the projection. Thin limbs shimmered with shifting geometry. Eyes, if they were eyes, glowed with something more like memory than light. It lifted its head. And Lira felt it. A gaze. A presence. Not physical, not bound by the photon frames, but aware. Something in that light had survived the jump between dimensions, something conscious. Watching her through the photons. Whatever escaped the dying star wasn't gone. It had followed the light to find her. The extractor hummed loudly, pulling the final encoded fragment into view. A last burst of symbols, fractured, hurried, as if carved in the dying seconds before the planet vanished. Lira leaned close, heart thunderous. Kiran, she whispered, translate if possible. The AI hesitated, an unusual behavior. Partial translation, it finally said. Message is fragmented. Show me. Symbols unfolded in front of her like drifting embers, rearranging into a single chilling line. The dimension you inhabit is not safe. The lights flickered. Something rippled through the observatory walls. And in the projection, the silhouette raised a hand, as if warning her of something moving toward Earth. The danger that destroyed their universe was crossing into hers. Lira pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her pulse slam against her ribs as the observatory's lights flickered down to a weak, trembling glow. The steady hum of Helion's life support systems wavered, dipping into a frequency she had never heard before, low, resonant, almost like the echo of thunder trying to speak. "Kieran," she rasped, "diagnose that vibration." Microspatial flutter detected, the AI responded. Source, unknown. Spacetime stress levels rising. But the warning came too late. Something darkened the quartz window. Lira froze. Slowly, mechanically, she turned toward the glass. A shape clung to the outer layer, not touching it, not adhering to it, but hovering a breath away. Tall. Emaciated. Angles where no bones should bend. Its outline rippled as if it were made from threads of stretched space itself. She stumbled backward, knocking over a tablet. The windows of a space station did not cast shadows. Yet this one did. Something from outside her dimension was trying to get in. The quantum extractor misinterpreted the disturbance as incoming data, and its holographic projectors flared to life. Light streamed through the display systems, reshaping itself into a figure, matching the shadow at the window but sharpened into crystalline detail. Its body was not flesh. Not energy. Not even coherent matter. It was a fractal, its form built from endlessly repeating patterns, spiraling inward beyond the limits of visible scale. Every tiny piece contained a smaller copy of itself, a geometry only higher dimensions could sustain. Lira couldn't breathe. "Identify yourself," she whispered, though her voice cracked under the weight of fear. The being tilted its head. Slowly. Purposefully. The flicker outside intensified. Photons striking the window shifted frequency, modulating into organized patterns. The extractor auto-decoded the incoming sequence, and a burning line of text scrolled across her main screen. The passage opens. Kieran's systems flared red. Warning, the AI blurted. Local spacetime torsion increasing. A dimensional aperture is forming. Lira backed against her console as every display erupted with cascading spirals of light. The fractal silhouette, both outside and in the hologram, raised a hand made of shifting geometry. And the console split open. Not physically, but visually, space peeled back like a curtain. A swirling tunnel of shimmering light spiraled outward from the machinery, its walls composed of glowing memory frames, the alien city, the collapsing star, the planet engulfed in dimensional arcs. It wasn't a wormhole. It wasn't a tear. It was a corridor built from memory, forged from the surviving photons of a civilization that had fled reality. Lira stared into the impossible tunnel. Her breath fogged as if the air had turned colder. A gentle pull tugged her forward, not gravity, not inertia, but something subtler, a resonance that matched the flutter in her bones. "Kieran," she gasped, "shut it down." The only way to learn what hunted her universe was to step inside. The corridor pulsed once, like a heartbeat. And the observatory lights went out. The corridor pulsed like a living artery, each beat sending ripples of shimmering light across its spiraling walls. Lira stepped toward it slowly, every instinct in her body torn between terror and awe. Her hand hovered inches from the threshold, trembling. "Dr. Kesson," Kieran warned, "analysis predicts destabilization of cognitive continuity. You may not return the same." Lira exhaled shakily. "No scientist does." With a final breath, she stepped inside. Instantly, the universe folded around her. Time collapsed, not gradually, not like falling asleep, but like stepping through a sheet of glass. Every second fractured into shards, each shard reflecting a different moment. Lira floated weightlessly, suspended between countless timelines overlapping like waves. When the fragmentation settled, she found herself standing, not in a corridor, not in Helion Observatory, but on the alien world itself. Alive. Brilliant. Vibrant. The city she had seen only in holograms now surrounded her in impossible clarity. Towers of crystalline lattice resonated with harmonics that vibrated through the air like melody. Walkways shimmered with embedded light. Citizens moved with elegant purpose, their fractal forms subtly shifting as if their bodies were attuned to dimensions she could barely perceive. Lira felt her throat tighten. She wasn't observing a hologram. She was inside the star's memory. The past wasn't just recorded. It was letting her in. Energy surged through the sky as massive pylons awakened across the city. Their cores glowed with spirals of dimensional geometry, bending the very fabric of space above them. The atmosphere shimmered with tears of soft light, like the sky itself was being rewritten. A ritual? A scientific breakthrough? Or an escape plan centuries in the making? Lira moved among the citizens, though none seemed aware of her presence. Time here felt strange, fluid, dreamlike, yet real enough that she could smell the ozone radiating from the pylon's activation. Then the scene shifted. She stood inside a colossal chamber ringed with rotating glyphs. Alien scientists, if that word even applied, chanted in harmonic frequencies, aligning their voices with the pulsating machinery around them. Light bled into fractal patterns across the stone floor, forming sigils she recognized from the blueprints. This was it. The moment they prepared to step sideways out of reality. She wasn't witnessing their escape. She was experiencing the seconds before their universe ended. Suddenly, one of the aliens stopped. It turned. It looked directly toward her. Lira's breath vanished. In its shimmering, multidimensional eyes she saw comprehension, recognition. It raised a hand, and its voice rang through the corridor-like space around her. Except it wasn't sound. It was understanding. "We do not die," the being said, its voice woven from starlight and memory. "We step sideways." The words vibrated through her mind, bending around the edges of logic. The being's form expanded, collapsing inward and outward at once. And the memory tore apart. Lira was hurled backward through the corridor, spiraling through collapsing timelines, slammed toward consciousness like a meteor falling through atmosphere. She hit the observatory floor with a choking gasp. The lights flickered back on. Kieran's voice buzzed overhead. "Dr. Kesson, you experienced an absence of 0.21 seconds." Lira stared at the ceiling, chest heaving. She had lived hours. If 0.21 seconds held hours of memory, what would happen when the passage opened fully? The observatory trembled again. A fresh burst of photons slammed into the extractor, bright enough to overload the outer sensors. Kieran dimmed the chamber instantly, shielding her eyes as the data translated into new holographic frames. Lira expected more scenes of the alien world. She was wrong. Earth appeared instead, blue, familiar, heartbreakingly fragile. The extractor projected atmospheric scans, weather simulations, and spectral readings across a series of rotating holograms. Coastlines flickered, swallowed by encroaching oceans. Forests dimmed into gray. Cities lay beneath blankets of dust, their lights extinguished. Lira felt her stomach twist. These weren't historical images. They were predictions. The dead star wasn't showing her its past. It was showing her Earth's future. "Kieran, what am I looking at?" "Projected Earth climatology and biosphere conditions," the AI answered. "Temporal index, approximately 12,000 Earth years from present." The next frames accelerated. Storm systems grew until they spanned continents. The magnetic field flickered with irregular holes. Volcanic activity surged. A global drop in sunlight fed a collapse in ocean ecosystems. Humanity's cities transformed into tombs. Lyra's pulse hammered as she gripped her console. Something triggers this. What is the initiating event? Kieran's voice grew unnervingly quiet. Cosmic cause detected. Cross-referencing gravitational signatures with the earlier signal. Lyra's breath caught. The earlier signal, from the supernova survivors? Correct. The data fused into a single model at the center of the room, a vast ripple of dark matter, sweeping across the Orion arm like a tidal wave through spacetime. It bent gravity, fractured orbital stability, and warped the fine structure constant just enough to destabilize planetary systems. Impact probability with the solar system, 99.4%, Kieran concluded. Lyra's legs weakened beneath her. Humanity would die, not from war, not from climate collapse, not from the sun's eventual death, but from a cosmic distortion drifting silently through the galaxy. Long before anyone alive today would ever sense it. The catastrophe wasn't random. It matched the same pattern that had destroyed the alien star. More frames flared. Earth's mantle split under gravitational shear. Oceans vaporized. The crust twisted like fabric pulled in opposite directions. The atmosphere tore away. The final simulation showed a dead world crumbling in slow motion, like ash blown apart by a cosmic breath. Lyra stared at the image as the hologram dissolved. Then the room darkened. The silhouette appeared again, tall, angular, fractal. Its shimmering limbs folded slowly as it raised an arm, pointing toward the still open corridor. Not threatening. Not demanding. A warning. Or an invitation. Perhaps both. Whatever destroyed their universe was coming for hers. And the only path to stop it lay inside the corridor. Lyra stepped into the corridor for the second time, bracing herself for the wrenching distortion she remembered from before. But this passage was different. The walls of light stretched, softened, and dissolved into a horizon that wasn't a horizon at all, an infinite sweep of color shifting in ways no human sense was built to interpret. The moment she crossed the threshold, gravity vanished. Then returned. Then inverted. Platforms drifted like thoughts across a sea of shimmering currents. Light flowed upward. Time bent sideways. Lyra felt multiple versions of herself flicker, past and future Lyras overlapping by fractions of a second before falling back into one body. She whispered, "Where am I?" The answer came before she could blink. They appeared. The aliens hadn't lived in the star's memory. They lived beyond the universe itself. Crystalline figures emerged from the fractal fog. Tall, luminous beings whose bodies refracted the higher dimensional space around them, their edges unraveling into spirals of geometry. They did not walk. They glided, riding currents of probability. One stepped forward. A leader, its form sharper, more deliberate. It radiated presence, not through sound, but through light thoughts that resonated directly inside Lyra's mind. "You saw our past," the being said, its words vibrating like chords. "Welcome to our present." Lyra's heart punched against her ribs. "You escaped your universe. We rose above it," the being corrected gently. "Into a manifold where time is plastic and energy eternal. A realm where entropy slows, where collapse can be held at bay." It turned, and the higher dimension reshaped around its gesture. Lyra glimpsed impossible landscapes, rivers of pure causality, mountains built from stable knots of spacetime, storms of dark energy swirling in patterns that sang. "But our refuge," the being continued, "is incomplete. Temporary. Vulnerable." Lyra's breath hitched. Vulnerable to what? The being touched her mind again, not intrusive, but revealing. A vision flared. It wasn't just their universe breaking. The higher dimension itself was beginning to tear. Space cracked like glass under cosmic strain. Dark matter ripples surged into this realm, distorting its foundations. Whole structures of folded spacetime buckled. Then the being showed her something else. Humanity, thousands of years from now. A dazzling future, humans with shimmering neural symphonies, bodies enhanced with quantum matter filaments, minds capable of stabilizing multidimensional space. They built vast anchors, dimensional stabilizers, preventing collapses that would have destroyed everything. Lira staggered. You're saying humans, fix this place? In the future? The being's fractal face brightened. Yes. But that means we survive the dark matter ripple. Earth survives. Humanity lives long enough to evolve into that. The being nodded. It will be because of you. Lira felt reality lurch. Because of me? How could I affect thousands of years of future evolution? The being's voice wrapped around her like warm light. Because we will save you first. The platform beneath Lira shimmered, vibrating with fate she could not escape. It was a loop, perfect, impossible, elegant. Humanity saves the higher dimension. The higher dimension saves humanity. Each species pulling the other through time. The future of two civilizations depended on choices Lira hadn't made yet. And one she was about to make. The crystalline beings led Lira deeper into the shifting manifold, each step landing on a platform that wasn't there a moment before. The space around them warped like liquid geometry, folding into spirals of impossible color. Every movement seemed to ripple through dimensions she couldn't name. Lira's mind throbbed with the scale of what she was seeing. This wasn't a universe. It was the skeleton beneath all universes. And it was falling apart. Fragments of broken dimensions drifted overhead like dying stars, each one crumbling into shimmering dust. The air, if it could be called air, shivered with a low, harmonic resonance. The manifold was singing its own elegy. A being beside her dimmed its fractal body in sorrow. This decay began the moment our star collapsed, it said. The supernova tore a wound between dimensions. We escaped, but not cleanly. Another being extended its arm, projecting a holographic lattice into the air. It resembled a cosmic web, threads of spacetime stretching across infinity. But some strands were frayed, glowing red with instability. Lira recognized the pattern instantly. It matched the dark matter ripple Kiran had identified, one that would one day pass through the solar system. A ripple that would destroy Earth. Her breath caught. Our extinction is connected to your survival. The crystalline leader approached again. Its presence felt like standing near a star, warm, vast, ancient. Your species, it said, will one day unlock the physics to heal these fractures. Humanity will rise beyond the three-dimensional cage, mastering energy forms we could never reach. But we won't survive long enough to evolve, Lira whispered. Not if that ripple tears apart the solar system. That is why you are here, the leader replied. We cannot act on your world directly. But we can give you what your future needs most, knowledge. A hook pulled tight in her chest. Knowledge wasn't a gift. It was a burden. And why me? Lira demanded. You could have contacted any scientist, any world leader, any agency. The being's fractal patterns brightened, like 1,000 stars igniting at once. We did not choose you. The words hit harder than gravity. Lira felt something shift in the manifold, a pressure, as though a larger presence was watching them. The light behind her changed, and she turned to see a shape forming out of pure radiance. It pulsed with a rhythm she knew. A stellar rhythm. Who chose me? She asked, barely able to speak. The answer came like a whisper woven into the cosmic winds. Your star. Lira staggered backward as a new realization exploded through her mind. The pulses. The photon bursts. The encoded memories. The corridor itself. Everything she had seen, everything she had been shown, wasn't a message from aliens. It was a message from the star she had been studying since childhood, a star that had gone supernova thousands of years ago. A star that had chosen her long before she was born. Her destiny didn't start tonight. It started in the core of a dying sun. And now, the future of two civilizations rested on what she would do next. The corridor spat her out with violent force. Lira hit the observatory floor, air tearing from her lungs as if she had fallen from orbit. Every nerve screamed. The metallic scent of ozone clung to her skin. And then... silence. No hum. No shimmering light. No fractal beings or folding geometries. Just the faint whir of the observatory's dormant systems. For a moment she wondered if some part of her mind, pushed past exhaustion, starved of sleep, had fabricated the entire experience. But the ache in her bones, the ringing in her ears, and the strange afterimage of higher-dimensional colors lingering at the edges of her vision told her otherwise. "Kieran," she whispered, voice trembling. "How long was I gone?" "Exactly 0 seconds," the AI replied. "No delay. No hesitation." Its tone was neutral, unaware that reality itself had bent around her. Lira pushed herself to her knees. Then she saw it. The quartz window, still, quiet, held a reflection that shouldn't exist. In the glass, behind her shaking silhouette, stood another. Tall. Thin. Angular. The same fractal presence that had first contacted her. But when she spun around, the observatory was empty. The reflection remained. Her pulse hammered. If it wasn't physically there, then it was existing at the edge of detection, like a ghost residing in photons, not matter. Kieran scanned the room twice, reporting no anomalous mass signatures. Yet the reflection watched her with patient stillness. A hook tightened in her chest. She wasn't alone. Before she could speak, her console flickered. Every monitor blazed to life, flooding the room with data. Photons arranged themselves into coordinates, planetary, stellar, and dimensional overlays shifting together like a cosmic map folding itself open. A location blinked on the main display. Not random. Not distant. Not safe. A place she knew only from classified astrophysical briefings. The Selim anomaly. A region where spacetime behaved like a wounded animal, twisting, snarling, devouring signals. Her star was pointing her there. A second gate. Lira's breath caught. This wasn't a follow-up message. It was a directive. She approached the screen slowly, each step shaking. "Kieran, confirm the coordinates." "Confirmed," the AI replied. "But the Selim region is restricted. No vessel is permitted to enter without." The console surged with light, cutting the AI off. New data cascaded across the screen, equations describing curvature singularities, dark matter density gradients, radiation spikes. All of it forming a pattern Lira recognized from the higher dimension. A map. A warning. And a path. The silhouette's reflection lifted its hand. Not pointing at her. Pointing at the coordinates. Go. Her throat tightened. The first corridor had shown her the past. The beings had shown her the future. But this felt like returning to something older than both. Not discovery. Recognition. She steadied herself, exhaled, and whispered. "This is only the beginning." The reflection faded. The coordinates remained. And Lira knew, with a clarity that felt carved from Starlight, that whatever waited at the second gate had been waiting for her all her life. The journey to the coordinates felt unreal, like drifting toward the echo of a dream she hadn't finished having. Lira guided the shuttle through the silent field of scattered asteroids, each one glinting faintly in the cold light of distant stars. Kieran monitored gravitational distortions, but even the AI sounded uneasy. "This region is unstable," it warned. "I know," she murmured. "But something wants me here. Because some truths do not wait to be discovered. They summon." The structure emerged from the darkness, an old asteroid base, half buried in rock, half gleaming with ancient solar plating. Records showed the base had been abandoned nearly 3 centuries ago, long before humanity had sensors sensitive enough to detect what was truly inside. The docking clamps groaned as the shuttle settled. Lira stepped into the airlock, her pulse steady but her thoughts far from calm. The photon pulse she'd followed still hummed in her bones, a rhythm like a heartbeat calling her name. Inside, dust floated like slow snowflakes. Panels flickered with intermittent sparks, still clinging to life after hundreds of years. But deeper in the base, the dust cleared, disturbed recently, as if something had walked these halls. Or waited. She wasn't the first to answer the call. But she might be the last. The central chamber opened into a hollowed-out sphere carved directly into the asteroid's core. The walls were lined with human-made steel, scorched and worn. But in the center, floated something human engineering had never touched. A perfect sphere of dark crystal levitated inches above the ground. Smooth. Silent. Radiating a faint gravitational pulse. Lira froze, every cell in her body recognizing the same higher-dimensional resonance she had felt inside the corridor. A human-made base. A non-human artifact. But the artifact was older than the base. Far older. "Kieran," she whispered. "Is this, alien?" "Unknown," the AI replied. "Material composition does not match any terrestrial or extraterrestrial database. Estimated age, impossible." The word stung with meaning. Impossible. Yet there it was, existing anyway. Lira stepped closer. The sphere awakened without sound or motion, its surface rippling like liquid obsidian. Photons erupted, filling the chamber with blinding radiance. She shielded her eyes as images assembled around her, rotating like planets in a newborn solar system. Not the past. Not the alien world she had seen in the star's memory. Not even Earth as it was now. This was the future. Human starships, sleek, colossal, powered by controlled singularities, crossing interstellar voids with ease. Dyson rings cradling entire suns. Planetary shields woven from exotic matter. Quantum channels threading galaxies together like arteries of light. Lira felt her breath catch in her throat. Humanity, flourishing. No wars, she whispered. No collapse. Advancement beyond anything we've imagined. But then the images shifted, showing something utterly impossible. Standing beside human explorers and scientists were crystalline figures, the beings from the higher dimension. Working together. Sharing knowledge. Healing spacetime fractures. Co-building structures the size of moons. Humanity did not just survive its distant future. It partnered with the very species that had outrun a supernova. The universe's destiny was not a straight line. It was a loop. The hologram zoomed inward toward a luminous structure at the center of the cosmic alliance. A massive ring of gravitational harmonics, part human design, part crystalline architecture, stabilizing the higher dimension the beings called home. The future of both species depended on it. And in one fragment of the hologram, Lira saw something that made her knees weaken. A human scientist, centuries ahead, holding a device. A device identical to the sphere floating in front of her. The sphere wasn't alien. It was human. Humanity's future was reaching back. The future called to her. But not as a witness. As the beginning. Because someone had to light the first star in the chain reaction of eternity. Helion Observatory trembled again, though only subtly. Kieran's sensors hummed in warning tones, detecting a distortion in the outer solar system. At first, it was almost imperceptible, a minuscule fluctuation in gravitational readings, easily dismissed. But Lyra's instincts flared. She leaned over the console, eyes widening as Kieran overlaid the anomalies on a stellar map. The dark matter ripple wasn't a distant threat. It had already arrived. The ripple, she breathed, voice barely audible. It's here. Not centuries from now, now. Kieran's calm voice contrasted with her racing pulse. Gravitational fluctuations indicate accelerated propagation. Expected trajectory intersects Earth's orbit within decades. Immediate monitoring and mitigation advised. Decades. Far too short for a civilization so unprepared. Humanity would never respond in time unless someone delivered irrefutable proof. And she was the only one who had it. She stared at the blank holographic field, realizing the challenge: no report, no telescope reading, no theory would convince humanity of an event beyond all precedent. But she had something no one else could touch: the star's memory, encoded in light that had traveled billions of years. If the proof existed, it existed only in photons shaped by an extinct civilization's intent. Lira activated the quantum extractor. Streams of photons flared to life, cascading into holograms, diagrams, and equations. Every shimmer contained fragments of past, present, and possible futures. Every flicker carried the echoes of a civilization that had survived a supernova and had reached out across time to warn her. "Kieran," she said, voice steadying, "show me everything." The observatory filled with light. Cities, alien and human, rose and fell in rapid succession. Dark matter ripples tore through stars and planets. Higher-dimensional corridors folded over themselves. A cosmic tapestry unfurled, each thread vibrating with inevitability. The universe itself was speaking, and the message was terrifyingly clear. Her hands trembled over the console as she mapped the paths of destruction. Coastal cities disappearing, oceans boiling, tectonic plates shearing under unseen forces. Humanity had no chance to survive this without intervention. And she alone had seen it. Yet, the extractor showed more than destruction. Hidden within the waves were instructions. Schematics for stabilizing gravitational harmonics. Notes on higher-dimensional anchoring. The same knowledge that had saved the alien civilization, now encoded for her to deliver. Time was collapsing. Humanity would either rise, or the ripple would erase everything before they even knew it existed. Lira swallowed. Her destiny was clear. Proof alone would not be enough. She would have to make them listen. And for the first time, she realized the full weight of the message. The collapse approached faster than anyone could imagine, and the future, her future, was on the line. The extractor shuddered violently under the torrent of photons streaming from Epsilon Ophiuchi. Every sensor in Helion Observatory screamed, but Lira held her hands steady over the controls, her knuckles white. The machine groaned as if it were alive, straining against the sheer density of information embedded in light that had traveled billions of years. Every photon carried a story. Every story demanded to be heard. Slowly, the flares of light coalesced into a single, staggering image, a map. Not of a single star. Not of a single civilization. Thousands of points pulsed across the void. Stars, galaxies, and entire clusters, each tagged with signals older than Earth itself. Each one had once hosted life, civilizations that had transcended mortality by encoding their existence in the quantum fabric of photons. Lyra's breath caught. She realized with a shock, humanity was not alone. It had never been alone. The universe itself was a library, and she had just opened the first page. Kieran's voice trembled, an odd response for an AI. Dr. Kesson, the complexity exceeds current comprehension. These civilizations, their signals are interlinked. Interlinked. The thought made her mind reel. The ancient civilizations had not only recorded themselves, they had built a network, a cosmic web of memory spanning time, space, and perhaps dimensions beyond comprehension. Each civilization calling out across the eons, waiting for someone, or something, to listen. The holographic map pulsed rhythmically. Epsilon Ophiuchi glowed brighter than the rest, but hundreds of other stars twinkled like hidden beacons. Each pulse resonated with faint harmonic vibrations, like echoes of thought waiting to be translated. The universe remembered everything, and now, it had chosen her to read its memory. Lira reached out, touching a cluster of stars. Instantly, the extractor illuminated histories of entire civilizations, their cities, their inventions, their departures from reality, each preserved in photons that had escaped the death of their stars. She saw civilizations survive supernovae, traverse higher dimensions, and leave instructions, like breadcrumbs, for those who came later. The room hummed with a resonance that pressed against her mind. She whispered, almost reverently, "The universe remembers everything." And now, it was calling her. Not just to witness, but to awaken the archive itself. The extractor pulsed one final time. Lira understood the scope of her task. She was no longer simply a scientist. She was a conduit. A guardian of a memory network that spanned galaxies, awaiting the moment when someone would use it to save not just humanity, but perhaps the entire cosmic order. The final photon flared, illuminating the observatory in pure, white light. And for the first time, Lira felt both the weight of eternity, and the impossible hope it carried. Lira exhaled, a long, steadying breath that carried the weight of countless lifetimes she had glimpsed in the star's memory. The observatory was silent but alive, the hum of the quantum extractor vibrating through every surface. She pressed her hands to the interface, feeling the photons pulse beneath her fingertips, each one a fragment of a civilization that had survived extinction by becoming memory itself. She could no longer be a witness. She had to be a participant. "I will do it," she whispered. And then, decisively, she began the upload. Every memory she had captured, the alien cities, the higher dimensional corridors, the phasing planet, even the future of humanity, was transmitted into the public quantum net. Scientists, engineers, explorers, anyone with the means and the curiosity, would one day access this archive. Kieran's voice was calm but all-laden. "Dr. Kesson, this action will ripple through history. Entire disciplines will be rewritten. Humanity may not comprehend the magnitude for decades, or centuries." Lira nodded. "They will learn. They will prepare. The dark matter ripple, it can be survived. Technology hinted at in the blueprints, they'll figure it out. Someone must decode the archive. Someone must reopen every forgotten gate. Someone had to become the first keeper of Starlight." She moved to the observatory window. Outside, the stars seemed to shimmer more brightly tonight, as if acknowledging her decision. The silhouette appeared once more, its fractal form bending light in impossible patterns. This time, it was no longer frightening. It observed her with patience, like a teacher waiting for a student to take the next step. Lira raised her hand. The silhouette shimmered in response, folding itself into a radiant gesture. Coordinates appeared before her, hovering in the sky, stars waiting to be remembered, to speak again through photons preserved across eons. The universe remembers. And now, humanity would learn to listen. She understood the enormity of her task. The Keeper of Starlight was not just a title. It was a responsibility spanning species, millennia, and dimensions. Every star that had ever died, every civilization that had encoded itself in light, could now speak through her action. Humanity was being invited into a cosmic dialogue, one that demanded courage, intellect, and imagination beyond what she had ever known. Lira exhaled again, slower this time. She smiled faintly, raising her eyes to the sky filled with countless silent beacons. She was ready. Humanity was ready. And the first chapter of a new cosmic age was beginning. The gates were open. The memories alive. And the Keeper of Starlight had begun her watch.